I did a short piece an hour or so ago before walking up a hillside and being completely exhausted. And I wasn't really quite expecting the onslaught in response. But I'd like to read a few of these comments because some of them are quite interesting. Henry Dobbs says, "We may admire the performer, I do, but we mustn't mistake the show for the truth." Is it what I said? I don't remember. Well put. Although I had found his pushback on the neo-right interesting in recent weeks. That's exactly the point. Uh, the I think anybody who can write well, and Douglas Murray writes well, he performs well. But I think fundamentally he's wrong. Cynicalist picks up and says, published 2017, Tim, not just out. No, that's the second book that I was reviewing, and I happened to get the two together, so I'm sorry if I've given the impression that the second book was new as well. It's just out from my point of view. Lisa King says, Murray's made plenty of money from Israel donors, co-director of the think tank Henry Jackson Society back in the day. Spinwatch has a report on the HJS because of the anti-Muslim spew, which ramped up when Murray joined. Some MPs left because they found Murray too extreme. Yes, funded by Israel groups. By the way, 70% of anti-Muslim groups or individuals are backed by USA or Israeli money. So you clap with glee as they're being slaughtered in the Middle East. Murray will stumble out of a gay club in Tel Aviv to his condo in Gaza, chanting his Christian Western values. If you think Nazis just died overnight in the 1940s, think again, it was repackaged. The destruction of Gaza is Hitler's playbook. King David Hotel in Israel, arming Argentina in the Falklands War, and as usual lied and lied about it. They're no allies of mine. To the Jewish people who are relentlessly fighting for Gaza as well, I admire you, as I know how hard it is to go against the flow. Anybody who thinks it's migrants' fault for the downfall of the West, well, I have no words. Maureen Harris says, personally I find Murray obnoxious and utterly without any empathy for anyone but himself. Michelle Roberts says, jealousy, pure jealousy. Well, I don't know about that really. I think Douglas Murray is wrong, or at least deeply flawed, and in several important ways, primarily because he engages in ideological cherry-picking, philosophical fatalism, and misleading stylization of data as destiny. And Murray's method is closer to confirmation bias, masquerading as cultural criticism. In The Strange Death of Europe, which is much older, I think, and his subsequent works, he selects anecdotes about migrant crime, cultural discord, and Islamist extremism without accounting for contextual statistics. He ignores the broader data showing that immigrants often contribute economically and culturally. Actually, immigration is good for a country, and that violent crime in many European cities has declined or remained steady. And when talking about the decline of Europe, he omits global migration trends, demographic transitions, and even the internal diversity of response across countries. His narrative is seductive precisely because it offers a clarity without complexity, an ideological mirror rather than a lens. Murray treats European identity as a fixed, fragile thing rather than as an evolving synthesis. It has always been evolving. His assumption that Islam, migration, and liberalism are mutually exclusive to European civilization is ahistorical. The Enlightenment survived the Inquisition. The Renaissance was predicated in the 13th century on the mix of Islam and Christianity in Spain. Western democracy absorbed Marx and Nietzsche, Freud, and punk rock. And European cities have always been pluralistic. Jews, Turks, Moors, and countless others built Europe as much as kings and cathedrals did. His claim that Europe is committing suicide is more theological than political. He invokes guilt, repentance, and purity, but offers little in the way of constructive alternatives. Murray often presents his books as serious interventions into the debate about civilization, but they read more like opinion pieces with footnotes. They read more like the leaders in dodgy magazines rather than serious academic discourse, which is what they are packaged as. His prose is stylish and beautiful and rhetorically charged, but that doesn't withstand rigorous scrutiny. He cites philosophers selectively, Spengler, Schopenhauer, without grappling with competing intellectual traditions. He ignores economics almost entirely, preferring to cast cultural anxiety as moral decay. And I understand why he would want to. Economics is hard work. His books lack methodological rigour, no peer-reviewed data. Well, obviously not. Who would want to look at that rubbish? No falsifiability, no engagement with credible migration scholars. From this point of view, he's closer to a YouTube monologue than a university lecturer. I know that. That's what I do. He's entertaining, he's assertive, but he's polemically hollow. And he ought to recognise, he and I are doing basically the same thing. We're just on different sides of the equation. But I don't package my stuff as if it's an academic tome, unless I want to write an academic tome, and in which case I will. But I'm not going to. I'm not going to take the text of a YouTube rant and pass that off as some sort of academic manual. Murray routinely interprets liberal self-criticism as weakness, but this misunderstands the very essence of democratic society. Self-reflection and pluralism are not signs of a death wish. They're what prevent civilizational stagnation. To criticize one's past, i.e., for example, to criticize colonialism, which I remember doing a course on that and leading a course on that, and it just goes on and on and on. It's to criticize the past is not to destroy it; it's to engage with it maturely. And his argument is therefore inherently authoritarian and adjacent. It sees complexity as a flaw and the only cure is some muscular monocultural nationalism. That is a prescription for conformity, not vitality. And Douglas Murray is wrong, not because he raises hard questions. I enjoy the hard questions, but because he refuses to wrestle with difficult answers. He offers moral panic dressed as cultural philosophy. And while his criticisms may resonate with those who feel politically or culturally disoriented, they lack the empirical discipline, the intellectual humility to be taken seriously. He's not diagnosing the death of Europe. He's projecting his own disappointment onto its evolution. This is lazy writing, but beautifully turned out. Beautifully turned out. I would happily read all his books, but then I've read all of. I was going to say Liz Truss's books. I've not read anything by Liz Truss, have I? I've read all Nadine Dorris's books. Nadine Dorris also turns a nice phrase. Well, at least I presume somebody turns a nice phrase, but they're beautifully turned out. And Douglas Murray does the same. Beautifully turned out, but ultimately fairly shallow. But as Farage says, and I don't take him very seriously either, I'm not shallow. No, absolutely not.